Hello, everyone. It is my great pleasure and honor today to present the award for Memoir to Ayelet Tsabari for her uncompromising and beautifully written work, The Art of Leaving. Ayelet cannot be here today. She has sent a video and she has a wonderful friend accepting on her behalf. But before we get to that, I'm going to read a little bit from the book so that you get a sense of it. To some extent, all writers need to be outsiders. It is this that allows them to step outside their surroundings and examine with sometimes painful intensity the world they live in. So it is with Ayelet Tsabari. She grew up in a suburb of Tel Aviv in a Jewish family of Yemeni descent, where she writes, quote, "In a country riddled with cultural prejudice, the stereotypes associated with Yemenis over the years have ranged from romanticizing to fetishizing to patronizing," end quote. At a very young age, she lost her beloved father and lived with a too often emotionally absent mother. In her years of restless travel following her stint in the army, she finds glimpses of both self and home. When, after many years, the house she grew up in is torn down, she feels it almost viscerally, even though she is not there. Quote, "Sometimes images of the demolition haunt me, as vivid and real as memories. I tell myself that walls are just walls. I remind myself we get to keep our memories and stories, take them with us wherever we go. Home is collecting stories, writing them down and retelling them. Home is writing, and it grounds, sustains, and nourishes me. Home is the page, the one I can always, always come back to," end quote. She also finds strength and identity in the food cooked by her mother and grandmother and a long line of strong Jewish Yemeni women. Quote, "The aroma of Yemeni soup lingers in my kitchen for days after I cook it. I grew up trying to shake the smell off me. Now it lives in my house, a permanent stamp on my walls, a pungent greeting that welcomes my guests. When I stand by my electric stove and pour hawajaj into the pot, I am a Jewish Yemeni woman making soup. I forget that I live in a cold and strange city, 10 time zones away from my family. I'm home," end quote. Finally, despite, quote, "memories of being abandoned, memories of walking away," end quote, of being both the mother who left and the child who was left behind, end quote, she also finds her sense of self and home in her partner and her daughter. Watching her daughter pretend writing, wearing fake plastic glasses, dancing to the sound of Yemeni music, she realizes that, quote, "In moments like that, I am reminded in awe that we are a part of something bigger than the two of us, bigger than the present moment. In my daughter's body, I see a connection to something ancient and unwritten. I look at her and I think, this is what it means to belong," end quote. Ayelet Tsabari's debut story collection, The Best Place on Earth, won the Sammy Rohr Prize for Jewish Literature and the Edward Louis Willant Award for Jewish Fiction, was a New York Times Book Review Editor's Choice and Kirkus Review's Best Debut Fiction of 2016. A graduate of Simon Fraser University's Writers Studio and the MFA program in creative writing at the University of Guelph, Ayelet teaches in the University of King's College MFA in Creative Nonfiction program at Tel Aviv University and at the University of Toronto School of Continuing Studies. As I said, Ayelet is unfortunately not here, but fortunately, she has sent a video, and when we've had a chance to watch the video, I will welcome her friend and fellow writer Kathy Friedman here to accept the award on Ayelet's behalf. So let's watch the video.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I'd like to apologize for this uninspiring hotel room background and for not being able to be there for the ceremony. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak via video. I'd like to express my immense gratitude to the judges of this award and to everyone in the Jewish Canadian Literary Awards for this incredible honor. You know, you write your book in solitude and you never know who's going to read it, if anyone's going to read it, and what's the response going to be, and you know, if it's going to resonate with people. So it's such a wonderful feeling to know that my book resonated and that people engage with it and respond to it in such a way. So thank you so much for that. I'd also like to thank my Canadian publisher, Harper Canada, and my editor, Jennifer Lambert, who helped midwife this book and believed in this book. And to my family, my partner and my daughter, my mom, my siblings, and to my father, who instilled in me the love of reading and writing, and whom I'll always be convinced has something to do with my success. As a child growing up in Israel, I never saw myself reflected in literature. I never read a character like me or like my grandmother or my father. And I never knew of a Yemeni author. In school, the books they assigned to us were all written by Ashkenazi authors and told Ashkenazi narratives. And even in history classes, very little was mentioned in terms of Mizrahi history. Not seeing myself in the books that I found in the library or that were assigned to me in school told me that my story, my family history, our memory, our narrative didn't really matter. And for a child who wanted to be a writer, not knowing of a single Yemeni author made me feel like my dream was out of reach. When I first arrived in Canada, I moved to Vancouver at the time, I learned that for Canadians, Jewish meant delis and matzo ball soups and lox, things that were very foreign to me coming from, you know, a Yemeni background. Most people I met in Vancouver at the time never knew a Yemeni person, a Yemeni Jewish person. I knew nothing of Mizrahi tradition. And then when I started reading in English, I found that the portrayal of Jewish experience in Canadian literature was even narrower than it was in Israel. So really, no wonder people in Canada were so confused by me. One of my favorite authors, Chimamanda Adichie Ngozi, has a TED Talk that talks about the danger of the single story. And what she means by that is our need, people's need, to reduce a country, a place, a people, a culture to a single story, basically a stereotype. And the problem with stereotypes is not that they're not true, because many of them do hold some truth in them, but that they are incomplete. And I think we have a need to hold on to these single stories because they give us this satisfying illusion that we get the place and we get we understand a culture. It's easier than accepting that cultures are actually made of many stories that could be at times contradicting as well. So as a Jewish Israeli woman of Yemeni descent, what I'm trying to do in my work is to complicate and broaden that single story, that single Jewish story, that single Israeli story, to sort of push and expand the frame of that story by complicating people's ideas of what it means to be Jewish and what it means to be Israeli. And I think that is why this award means so much to me, because this recognition isn't mine alone. By honoring this book, this award actually gives space to a Jewish story that is beyond the single story, and celebrates the diversity of Jewish identity and Jewish culture and Jewish stories. So thank you again so much for this. And here's to more Jewish stories. Peace and love to all. Thank you.
Now I'd like to welcome Kathy Friedman.
So you've all heard from Ayelet, and there's nothing I can really say that's as eloquent as she put it, but I've known Ayelet for about 10 years, and I know how fiercely dedicated she is to storytelling, to telling Jewish stories, and especially to telling Mizrahi Jewish stories. And I know how much this award really means to her, so thank you so much. My background is Ashkenazi. I'm from South Africa, grew up in Thornhill, met Ayelet in graduate school, and my favorite thing about her writing is the way it's really broadened my world and my understanding of what it means to be Jewish, the diversity and the vibrancy of Mizrahi Jews who are living in Israel. And if you haven't read her memoir yet, The Art of Leaving, you have a real treat ahead of you. So thank you so much for this.